Okay, welcome everyone. So great to see everybody. And what a wonderful time of year to get out and about, and what a great place to be. I had the great privilege of being in Puerto Rico for the past week, taking pictures of birds that I want to use on these videos. And as wonderful as it was, and as wonderful experience. I've said this before, you come back and after a while, you're like, wow, there's more birds in Orange County than here. I mean, Puerto Rico's an island, and islands are a little less diverse. But if you go to the southwest of the United States, same thing. Like beautiful birds, beautiful scenery, but then you say, wow, Orange County more diverse than here. And we really live in just an absolutely wonderful place to spend time in nature. And as wonderful as nature is elsewhere, unless you're like in a rainforest, I think you come back and you say, wow, like the place I live is kind of special. And if you are so minded and hoping to get out more, I just want to give a shout out to all of the organizations which um, are leading bird hikes and walks and are a great to get out that you might be interested in. So the Orange County Audubon Society has a number of sanctuaries. The first Tuesday of the month at 4, I lead one at 6.5 Station. I'll be leading the second Sunday at the Bashakil as part of both the Bashakil and OCAS. There will be a third one next month. Haven't figured out where because I'm wrestling the Delaware Water Gap. I wanted to leave one there, but they're changing on when their fees are going to be due, where you have to pay to park. So I'm kind of wrestling with that. But anyway, so OCAS has a bunch of walks. Some of these walks happen at the Bashakil. There are a couple of people here who were there last night. Helping amphibians cross the road. So they have wonderful programs there. And coming up just this past weekend, there was a training for the volunteers who were going to have scopes on 2 eagles' nests. And I'm so hoping, I saw eagles at each of them yesterday, but I have yet to see eagles sitting on the nest. That's what you want. Eagles' nests are so deep that the fact that I haven't seen them doesn't mean they're not there. But it's around here where you start to get a little nervous. You want the eagle's nest to have a good set of eaglets that you can look at through the scope this year. But in any case, so if you want to, you're out hiking and you want to see if there's eagles growing up in nests, the Bashakil is a great place to do that on weekends. But wait, there's more. There's not only Orange County Audubon Society, there's Sullivan County Audubon Society. They lead walks, etc. There's the Edgar Mearns Bird Club here in Orange County. They do great trips, lots of great professional birders there. There's Friends Group of the Friends of the Shawangunk Grasslands that lead hikes. And very often if you go to a place and you don't know it, there's friends members there who are happy to come up and show you something in a scope or like talk to you about the birds that you're likely to see there. There's the Friends of the Wallkill National Wildlife Refuge. There's the Gifford Pinchot Audubon Society that I think had a walk at the Bashkill this weekend. So it's just such a beautiful place to go. And if you're a little intimidated because you're thinking, I'm not the birder who can go out, I'd love to accompany others. There are plenty of others. So you have kindred spirits, and so feel free to check out any of their websites. I got an email today, and I'd like to kind of start with that, if you don't mind. There's an email. The DEC is going to be looking for a new kind of frog species that we don't know too much about in some of the Orange County Audubon sanctuaries. So we don't know if it's there. But we're trying to map in New York State where it would be. It's a type of leopard frog. So I think over the weekend they put up their things for listening to frogs. And then they sent an email to us, and the email was, you guys have a crazy amount of ducks at this wetland in Orange County. And so it was just great. They're like, hey, that would be a great way to kick off the talk tonight. So the last time I was at a 6.5 station, I saw 10 different species of waterfowl. So I'm just going to introduce it and play this in the background. Now, that's a lot because in summer, I'm used to there's Canada geese, there's mallards, there's wood ducks, and there's the mute swans, which are usually raising family. They're introduced. But here, you can, if you were to go today, you could see, there's Canada geese and there's mallards, and I was expecting them. And it's kind of fun. Look, the mallards are kind of courting and, doing weird things with their butts and their tails and their necks, etc. But then this is a good time to see not only these. I don't know if anyone noticed this, there were 6 of these guys on the pond right outside Ak here. So like on the the seminary right up the road, the Carmel mission. So these guys were on the lake. I'm going to be talking about that. That's this time of year, all right? They're not going to be here all year round, but this is just a great time to see them. Those are the common mergansers, just beautiful birds, so you get to see them. Oh, but you get to see more. Look, there's a bufflehead, there's a black duck, there's all of these different species all in the same place, which kind of gets us into some of the coloration differences we're going to see. There's a question here that's burning in my mind if I was a duck. Who should she have sex with? Or no, because like that sounds like a weird question for us humans. Because like if you're at, like a party or whatever, and you're talking with someone or dancing with someone, and then you say, wait, this is a, prospective partner. Is this a member of my species? The answer is yes, of course it is. But if there are 10 different species of waterfowl on the same lake in breeding season, there are some bad choices you could make. Like, back in the day, there were multiple species of humans alive at the same time. So, like, if you were especially in more the old world, but there was a time when there were Homo sapiens, there were Neanderthals, there was the Flores humans, there was the group in Central Asia, there was, all of these different things. So you could potentially date someone who wasn't your species, which would mean maybe your reproductive efforts would be wasted because maybe your kids wouldn't turn out so well. So who is she going to mate with? And that's why when we start looking at these ducks in just a few minutes, we're going to see, look at all of the distinctive features. Now, a lot of these features are for courtship specifically to advertise to the females, here I am a member of your species, and maybe even like I'm a fancy member of your species. You should pay even more attention to me than you do the other members around. So that's the female that goes to the pintail duck that I just showed you. And in autumn, they're not going to be trying to impress the females like this. So in autumn, when they migrate, it's going to be more boring, all right, because they're not going to have the bright coloration. So not only is this a great time to see these waterfowl, just in general, they look nicer than they will in the future. So let's talk about what you could see if you go out. And once again, this is from the past week, 10 different species in one place. All right, so let's just look at what you might see. So in waterfowl, we separate them into swans, geese, and ducks. All right, so let's kind of go through those. Now, this is the swan. If you know your swans, this is the one you're probably most familiar with because they can stay with us all summer. You commonly see them on lakes, etc., and they can raise families here. The next two that I'm going to mention, you might see them during migration, but they don't raise families here. They don't spend here all summer. These are what are called mute swans. They are introduced from Europe. People liked them. They said, oh, let's go to the Americas. Let's bring our swans with us. And the way you can tell is their orange bill. So that's kind of rule number one. You see a swan, first thing you look for is the bill. What color is it? With all these birds, like there's so many features that you could focus on, but there are shortcuts. And as you do more and more birding, there's a shortcut. If it's a swan, bill. First thing you look at, what color is the bill? Well, this is the time I've yet to see a mute swan here this year. But very soon, here's a mute swan going around and kind of like defending its territory. If there's a Canada goose around, it'll kind of chase it off, kind of, this is my zone. And so this is where I'm going to raise my young. And these are the only ones which will stay with us all summer. So here in Goshen, if you would like to visit it throughout the summer, or just walk the Heritage Trail with some binoculars, you get to see the swan babies, which we call cygnets. You get to see them growing up. And you can say, oh, look, here they are when they're very young. And here you can see them when they're a little older, etc. Now, not to be negative, I don't mean to be negative at the outset, but the song that I led with was It's a Cruel, Cruel World. Just hinting at, just because we see cygnets doesn't mean that all of them are going to live until August where they can fly away. So that's another thing that I always look for when I see them. I count. All right. So 3 years ago, the first time I saw the cygnets, there were 4, and all 4 reached adulthood. That was great. Then 2 years ago, the first time I saw them, there were 6, of which, no, I'm sorry, 1 got to adulthood. And then last year, I forget, it was either 6 or 8. I'm sorry. It's a year ago. But 2 got to adulthood. So that's one of the things as you go through the the year as you're watching them mature. That's exciting, but you're also counting and you're thinking, ooh, maybe a snapping turtle got some, maybe an eagle got some, because eagles do go after ducks, etc. So that's exciting. And I'm going to point something out. I don't want to get too heavy into this because it is kind of next week's topic of bird love. Like when birds court, what are they doing? Like, what are the females after? What are the males after? How do they do it? How does one species differ from another? That's next week. But something strikes me as odd when I look at these swans. Can you tell if that's a male or a female mute swan?
No.
Okay. It's a male. You can tell just because the little black bump on its head was a little bit bigger. But if you said no, that's a little bit bigger in males. They're almost identical. And here you can see it chasing away a Canada goose. The interesting thing is when that's the case, if the males and the females look alike, you can bet money on two things. Sometimes you're wrong, but you're almost always right. Is one, I'll bet you they mate for life because they look identical. And number two, I'll bet you the males help take care of the kids. All right. And so if you're looking at waterfowl and the males and females look like each other, those are both really good bets. Not perfect, but really solid. Whereas once we get into the ducks and you see, wow, there's a big difference between the males and females, the opposite bet is usually true. Wow, I'll bet you they're going to be with a different partner next year, and I'll bet that the males aren't going to help at all raising the kids. So for whatever reason, the similarities in the coloration seem to relate to other aspects. And we get to see this because mute swans are going to come back in this area and we can watch them raise a whole family. Now, here is, I said the orange bill is the mute swan. I kind of lied to you in that it takes them a while to get to that. So like in their first year of life, just like bald eagles don't have the white head till they're 5, mute swans don't have their orange bill till right away. So that's a young mute swan. It will have an orange bill, but not yet. But if you look behind it, like, because this is about like 40 minutes from here. If you look behind it, if you're a birder, you're thinking, that's not supposed to. Look at that. That's a trumpeter swan. That's the second biggest bird in North America. First is the condor. Trumpeter swan is second. So we can see that. It's rare in Orange County, but you can still see them here. Notice it has a black bill. But more likely, you would see what's called a tundra swan. And we saw some on a walk at the Bashakil last month. And right on the same day, I saw some of these as well. So here is something that you can see in Orange County. Notice the black bill, little yellow spot that often helps
So
you.
it was fucking Adobe. Fucking Adobe.
I'm so sorry you're having trouble with Adobe, but we're gonna mute you if that's all right. Um, so this is um, this is what we saw at the Bashakil on our last walk. We said, "Oh, look! Not only are there swans, there are black bills on those swans." And then I drove to an Audubon sanctuary from the Bashakil, and about 15 minutes later, I got to this, and these were by the side of the road, so the pictures are nicer. Now, I would love for them to stay all summer. They're gone already because they are called tundra swans. All right, so they breed in the tundra. So the only time that we will see them is during migrations where they're going from the southeast coast where they spent their winter, like maybe Virginia, maybe the Carolinas, and then like the north of Canada where they're going to lay their eggs, which is one of the lessons it took me decades to learn, and I always try to impart. It is always good to go out birding. And you might say, oh, but it's still cold. I'm going to wait till it gets a little warmer. Yeah, but see, the cold is when these guys are flying because they still have 2,000 miles left to go. That's like from wherever they were in like Carolina or Virginia, they got to here. 2,000 miles left to go. Some birds will go even farther. So they're going to be at the end of winter in the early spring. And if you're not out at that point, if you say I'm going to wait till April when it's warmer, they're already laying eggs up in the tundra. And so that was you missed your opportunity until the next migration. All right, so I'm sorry, I'm just getting some background noise. If it's okay, I'm going to, there you go. All right, so, all right, I'm sorry. If everyone can mute, I'll try to mute everybody, but I almost muted myself. Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, So we have swans in our area. They are the largest of the waterfowl, and you can tell them their white colors, the long necks. Although, as I pointed out, they take a while to develop that coloration, and they're typically grayer when they are the cygnets. And if you remember from when you were younger, the whole ugly duckling story. I mean, I don't think they're ugly, obviously, but they don't develop the full white pattern uh, till later in their lives. So those are the swans. Next, there are the geese. Now, I just want to say I don't want to spend too much time on geese because I'm sure a lot of you know Canada geese. I want to maybe spend a little more time on the ones you don't know. But I'm actually thrilled to talk about Canada geese. And you might say, why? Because I find them annoying. And part of me is so happy by that. Because believe it or not, Canada geese were becoming rare in New York State. They weren't endangered, but they were marching in that direction. We were worried about them because back in the day, you could kind of shoot anything at any time, and Canada geese can be eaten. And so their numbers were dropping sharply, as were a lot of the birds which we enjoy today. So the protections that got put into place, like in 1918, the Migratory Bird Act, um, these help preserve them. And the wildlife that we see is uh, in large part due to the conservation efforts of the past. So here are Canada geese. So I talk a little bit about there. They can hunt and they can be eating not only during the day, but also at night. That's this video here. And once again, because the males and females look a lot alike, you can bet I think they're going to largely mate for life, although divorce is possible. And I'll bet you that both are going to care for the young. Bigger birds often have that issue. Like if you're a big bird, like a goose or like a trumpet or swan, huge wingspan, an eagle, it's going to take a while for your young to develop. So that's a two-parent job. Smaller birds, like in the ducks, it's a shorter time period, and so maybe it's not as important to have two parents there. Now, we'll keep on going, but sometimes when you go to 6.5 Station, which is 20 minutes from here, you can see like 100 Canada geese, 300 Canada geese. All right, so it's exciting, the numbers that you can see. At this time of year, you can see them courting. So you'll see a number of them doing these weird things with their necks, hoping to attract the females, flapping their wings. All right. So we'll see a lot of that going on. And then very soon, we should see them start to build their nests. Now, they don't want you to see them build their nest because whichever the adult is sitting on it is going to try to stay camouflaged so you don't notice them. There are a lot of things that eat birds' eggs and baby birds. All right, but if you look close on big mounds of vegetation, it's not unusual in the near future to see a Canada goose up on top. And we're probably only a month and a half away from seeing our first baby Canada geese of the year, our first gosling. So that's another thing that as you go throughout the year, you can not only watch the mute swans as they're growing up, but the Canada geese as well. We may have seen the last of these guys until December. So these pictures are just from, I'm sorry, I just lied. These pictures are from 2 weeks ago, but I'm not sure you could do this anymore. Where these are snow geese. Snow geese do not live here, but they do pass through. Some winters they spend here. This winter, they didn't at their favorite haunts. Like we've been seeing them at the Liberty Loop, and they're just beautiful. You can see hundreds of them in the air at the same time. They all shift directions at the same time, and their colors change. It's beautiful. I didn't see that this year. So if you were to see snow geese, they would be migrating through. These can go even farther north than the tundra swans. So believe it or not, like these things are eating Orange County grass because some of them are going to fly 2,700 miles more. So they had to migrate here, well, typically from somewhere. They have 2,700 miles to go. There's islands in the north of Canada, like Baffin Island, and even a couple farther north than that. And the snow geese can be heading up to there. Here are some in flight, just beautiful as they all shift direction at the same time, and you see the change in the white bodies and the black wings, etc. So Canada geese are geese. Snow geese are geese. And here's a really small goose that sometimes you have to be careful. It's called a brant. I've been in scenarios where they're not that common in Orange County until you start to get close to the Hudson and New York City, in which case you can see them more commonly. But this is at Liberty Loop a couple of years ago. So it looks like a Canada goose, but it's a little smaller. And so, if there was a whole bunch of Canada geese and you weren't paying attention, you might miss it. That's called a brant. So those are three geese, which we can see in Orange County. All right. So there's only like two really types of swan, rarely a trumpeter. So two or three that you can see. So, if you're trying to learn the identification, that's easy enough. There's only three geese, and really brants are uncommon. So once again, that's easy. But now the ducks, there's a lot. All right, so this can be intimidating. So one of the first questions that you should ask yourself if you see a duck is it dabbling or diving? And that will pretty easily separate the ducks into two halves. And all of a sudden, instead of like this whole big group, now you have a much smaller group. And what I mean by dabbling is what these ducks are doing. They simply upend themselves, so their butts stick in the air, and they're near the shore, so their upended necks can reach the aquatic vegetation that they are feeding on. So some ducks, that's all they do. All right, we'll go through them first. But then there's a second group of ducks called the diving ducks or the sea ducks. If you're watching them on the surface of the water, very often they're in the middle of a body of water. And all of a sudden they disappear because they dove under water. And so that should say, ooh, that's not one of the dabbling ducks. That's one of the diving ducks. Okay. So on the dabbling ducks, there's one that we probably know very well, and then some like these, which are migrating through. So these are dabbling ducks, and if you don't know them, that's, understandable because once again, they don't spend all year here. The most common dabbling duck in our area is the mallard. And because it's so common, we often take it for granted. But look at that head. Like bright green on birds is not that common. There aren't that many birds which are bright green. So that's really kind of dazzling. And notice that there's a gender difference here. There doesn't have to be, like black ducks. Males and females look almost identical. So ducks don't have to have stark differences between males and females, but most do. So the female doesn't want to look like that because she's the one who is by herself raising the young. So she wants to hide. She wants to camouflage in the marshes. She wants no one to see her and her vulnerable young. So having a bright green head would be detrimental to her. The males have a bright green head, but only during breeding season. So this is not a year-long thing. This is just for mating. And it's accomplishing a couple of things. One, it's showing the female what species this is. Because once again, if there's 10 different species on a lake at the same time, all right, so here they are. So you can clearly see the difference between the males and the females. Mallards also have this blue patch called a speculum on their wings. And if you look, the male bills are yellow and the female bills are orange. That's another thing where they differ. If you got, all of these dating choices and a lot of them are the wrong species, the greenhead advertises to the female, hey, I'm your species as they're choosing. Also, male coloration often indicates something about health. All right, because if I'm a male duck and I'm making feathers, then if I'm unhealthy, if I'm sick, if I've got a parasite, if I'm underfed, then my feathers are going to show that. I don't have as much energy to dedicate to feather production. So females can look at males, whether it be ducks, and then how bright a mallard's head is, or cardinals or blue jays. Females look at the colors and they don't say, oh, what a pretty bird. They're checking out how red is the cardinal. And they're saying, here's two males. This one's redder than that one. That one's healthier, all right, than the one that's not as bright. And the same thing with mallards. So the female is the male is kind of showing the female, look how healthy I am, or not. Like, look, my feathers are a little dull, or et cetera. So as she's choosing, that's a sign to her. So this is something which is triggered by hormones. Both males and female ducks are making estrogen and testosterone. So it's testosterone which is going to trigger a lot of the breeding behavior and the changes in the structure of the feathers that produce the green. Now, Mallards are kind of an extreme example of this. Mallards, here they are doing various types of courtship. Mallards will try to mate with, well, almost anything. And there's a whole bunch of species which are known to hybridize with mallards, because once again, the male mallards are attempting to mate with a lot of different things, including black ducks, gadwalls, so here are black ducks here. And so there are occasional hybrids. And in one of my videos, I forget which one, I do have what I think is, yeah, this guy. See how it's kind of green up top and gray on the face? I think that's a
Mhm.
hybrid that had a mallard for the male parent and a black duck for the female parent.
Mhm.
So mallards are mating at this time of year, and mallards are actually very pretty birds. But we go on. Here is the second duck, which we could reliably see, say, in Goshen and throughout much of Orange County throughout the summer. These are wood ducks. And if you look at the male wood duck there, obvious, beautiful. Notice the females are a little more camouflaged than, this bright coloration. Um, Here, I have to have more wood ducks somewhere. So just beautiful coloration there. But once again, this is just for breeding. All right. So come summer, you might ask, where did all the wood ducks go? Because I don't see that anymore. And if they're not trying to attract a female, then why spend all of the energy making yourself visible to predators so they won't look like this? So spring is the time. We'll see ducks migrating in fall, but they won't look as nice. All right. So this is a spring thing. So beautiful, beautiful coloration. Notice that the females are much more camouflaged. One of the things that we'll get to, and I'm sorry, I have so many videos that sometimes I lose the one I want to find. There we go. Yeah, so we'll talk about this one. Um, the females, once again, are going to be raising their young all by themselves. But something weird happens in wood ducks where there are a bunch of birds, including some ducks, that need to nest in a hole, in a cavity, like a hole in a tree or whatever. That's why a lot of nature organizations will put up nest boxes with cavities for the wood ducks to hide in. But they can go up into trees up to really tall, like even like 60, 80 feet. And something that happens weird is, let's say a female has laid as many eggs as she feels that she can raise. So in her head, I don't know, I think I could raise 8 ducklings. All right, so she lays 8 eggs. But now let's say she says, you know what? I think I have a few more eggs in me. What does she do? She'll go lay her eggs in other females' nests. So sometimes you'll see, 13, 19 ducklings following a female. They're probably not all hers. While she was out feeding her, what other female ducks probably snuck into her nest and laid eggs. So that's something odd. It's called brood parasitism. And I wish we could paint like nature in like black and white, shades where like things are clear cut. I'm like, is brood parasitism good or bad? Well, from a female's point of view, like it's not great that she has to care for all of these extra young. But since females tend to return to the same breeding grounds, like where they grew up, if they were successful, they'll go back. And if these females live 10 years, then a lot of the other ducks that might come back are her kids or her grandkids. So if there's another female putting eggs in her nest, it might be her cousin, it might be her niece. And so if she helps like that duck come to adulthood, it's a parasitism in a way, but it's also kind of maybe helping your kin in a way. So it's a little confusing what's going on. So I don't, you know, hope to speak to it at all. But so these ducks are the ones which we expect to see all year round, say here in Goshen. So that would be the mallard and the wood duck. But the reason to go out now is because there's more. So there are a lot of ducks which we don't expect to see all year round, but that are migrating through. Black ducks, they are in the area year round, but this is the absolute best time to see them. They're not reliable throughout all the summer, even though it is possible. They look very similar to mallards, but they kind of have a chocolate brown coloration. Now, when I say look very similar to mallards, I'll get to this again in a second. One of the reasons I'm saying that is because it's easy to get confused. I see a lot of ducks. What am I looking at? But you know mallards, you know them. And so use the ones that you know for a size estimate. Black ducks are very similar to mallard size. So note that. There's a duck, I'm not sure what it is, but it's the size of a mallard. Then there are ducks which are like half the size of mallards, like these guys. These guys are the smallest ducks in North America, green-winged teals. Bubbleheads are really close. So on average, these are a little smaller. But when you see it next to a mallard, you say, wow, there's a tiny duck next to the mallard. And so I think mallards are great in the field because you can use them to kind of help you figure out what the other ones are. This is what the males look like at this time of year. They have kind of a cinnamon head with a big green stripe in it, gray back with a little white stripe on their side. Males and females will look pretty much identical come autumn. So once again, I love seeing green-winged teals uh, in autumn, but especially in early autumn, they all look the same. All right, they're all kind of camouflaged and a little duller, whereas here, just bright colors, and I'll go back to them in the flying in a second. Just when the light catches it just right, the green wing teal, I said that the mallards have a blue speculum, and that's the spot on the wing. Here you see green. Now, I think it's in here somewhere. When I say green, here's the thing. Mallards, they have green heads, but they don't have green pigments. Um, what I mean by that, oh, and I see there's something in the chat. Hello. Hello, cut back. Oh, you just had 4 today. Blue morph. Oh, good for you. Oh, okay, yeah. There was a blue. Yeah, I'm getting to the blue wing teal next. Thank you for noticing. Yes, there was a nice one here. There was a. Oh, in the picture, like I was showing you the green wing teal, there was a blue wing teal right behind it, and we'll get to that in a second. Very good catch, sir. So here you see these colors, but like let's take a cardinal. It has red feathers. If you grind up the red feathers, you get a red powder. If you take a goldfinch's yellow feathers, you grind up yellow feathers, you get a yellow powder. But if you take green or blue feathers and you grind them up, the feathers look brown. And that's because it's not a pigment molecule like the way you have a red dye that makes your shirt red. That's how cardinal feathers work. That's not how these work. It's the structure of the feathers and how it interferes with light that gives you the green. And for that reason, look how green that is. But you know what? If the duck turns a little bit and the sunlight hits it from a different direction, all of a sudden it kind of looks aqua, the same duck. It was so bright green a second ago. And if you look here, that's a little more aqua than it used to be. And then it can be duller depending on how bright the sunlight is. So when I say green-winged teals, that's a great feature to use. But it kind of does depend on the lighting. Now, if I were to look at these, I can't tell what they are. So this is autumn. And they don't really look all that distinctive until like they spread their wings a little bit here. But that's why one of the things, like if you said, oh, it's half the size of a mallard, all right, I don't know what those ducks are, but there's a whole bunch of them in a group. But if you were to see a mallard, you would say, oh, they are so much smaller than a mallard here. Okay. And just as you'd pointed out, what I always try to do anymore is, I'll get to blue-winged teals in a second, but here's a little peek. When I see a bunch of ducks that I think I know, I look harder anyway. Like some birders will say that, look at every bird. Because if you think it's a bunch of Canada geese, it might be, ooh, there's a brant. That's a special find. Like I've only seen brants in Orange County, I think twice. So if I saw a brant, that would be like, ooh, I saw a brant. They look like Canada geese, and I had to look close. And the same thing here. If I see a bunch of ducks take off, I just take out my camera, snap, because some of them, even though I said, oh, it's a bunch of green-winged teals, all of a sudden there'll be a blue-winged teal in there. So blue-winged teals, I love them. They're harder to see than the green wings, and we only get them through migration. So these teals, these are small ducks. They will not nest here. So they are on their way somewhere else. Here, so here's the green wing with the cinnamon head. Here you can see the blue wing tail with that blue wing teal with that big white stripe there. But that's a spring thing. It will not look like that in autumn. So once again, we're only going to see them in spring or autumn. And in spring, they're so much more colorful. So this is a great time of the year to go out. And they are called blue wing teals because there'll be others, a shoveler in there too. We'll get to use that. And this is all great, but this is 20 minutes from here. This is the Orange County wetland in um, Goshen, the Okas Sanctuary there. And the Heritage Trail goes through that. So I'm just pointing that out, that there are places to see like, diverse birds. You have to hike, you have to wade through mud, it's hard to get to. Here, there's a 20-mile paved bike trail. And then you just have to, you're taking a nice leisurely stroll and just bring some binoculars, look at the wetland that's right next to the trail. It's so convenient, so easy to see. And you can see why they're called blue-winged teals, because they have the sky blue patch on their wings when they fly, and you'll see more of that here. So here, you can't always see that. They kind of have to partially spread their wings in order to see that. When the light hits them and they get close, just beautiful coloration on the spring males. The females, once again, want to be a little more camouflage here. But see the size? See what I mean? Like, I would have noticed that when you say, like, wow, like there's a mallard. That duck is so much smaller than a mallard. Let me figure out what that is. That's something different. So I think mallards are great for a lot of reasons, but one, that they can help you identify more unusual birds as well. I have yet to see a blue-winged teal this spring, but we have been seeing widgeons both in Goshen and at the Bashik. I'm always torn on how to describe a widgeon because it's just got like stuff going on. Like it's got like a gray mottled on the face that's a little different from the grayish brown on the neck. It's got like a buff mohawk. It's got green on the eye. It's got a blue bill. It's got a white patch on the tail. Like some things like cardinals just have red. They're red with a crest. Like you can sum up what they look like in, a short phrase. Widgeons, I think it just takes longer. There's a lot going on. So here is also a dabbling duck, which we can find in our areas. And once again, I've been seeing them. So a lot of these birds, what I'm showing you now, like I think this one, are the ones I've seen in the past 2 weeks at like either Goshen or the Bashik. So these are American widgeons. One I have yet to see this year, which isn't surprising. Ducks don't all migrate in the same week. All right, so if you look at spring migration, some of it starts in February before it's actually spring, and some of it's still going on in May. So that's a couple of months. But there are ones that you're going to see early, and there's ones that you're going to see late. So when I say I haven't seen these, notice how green it is behind this northern shoveler. They come a little bit later than this. So this has a green head like a mallard, but look at the white chest and the brown. But if you get a chance to look at its bill is huge. All right, so the name shoveler comes from that really wide bill so that it can grab plant tubers, so that it can crush mollusk shells. And so that's a great migrating bird to see. All right, so here you can see, look at that. Look at that bill. It's huge. You can see the bright colorations. In autumn, both males and females are camouflaged. They're much harder to pick out. They look like mallards with big bills. So unless you're looking closely, you wouldn't see it. Here's the last one of the dabbling ones. This is a little harder. It's called a gadwall. We had gadwalls at a couple of spots last year. They're about the size of mallards, a little bit smaller. And you kind of have to look and say, wait, that looks different. All right, yeah, that's not a mallard, different shape, etc. But nothing that really like leaps out at you as like, here's the defining feature. So gadwalls may be a little tougher. So here's males and females. All of these are dabbling ducks, so you're likely to see these by the shore, all right, because they're not going to swim underwater, so they're just going to upend themselves, and then hopefully their necks can reach the plant material that um, they are looking for. Okay. So out of those ducks, the only ones which I expect to see here, like in Goshen at the Okas Reserve, the only one I expect to see are mallards and wood ducks. All of these other ones, beautiful ducks, but go now. If you want to see these ducks, go now because they are only here in migration. Now, migration, some of these, like this ones I'm going to talk about in a second, they're early. So unless you see these in the next week or so, you're probably going to miss them until next year. Whereas some of the dabblers, like the shovelers, you still have a month to see them. But this is migration time, and some migrate early. And how did I, wait, I'm sorry, I missed one. How did I miss? the pintail. There we go.
Hmm.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Do I have two different? I have like 6,000 videos on my YouTube channel, and I just updated one. I think I'm in the un. I didn't know I had two playlists for ducks. All right, let me just. I wanted to show you the pintails from this past week, which there should be a waterfowl. Am I dreaming? Okay, I'm sorry. I have. All right, all right. We'll go back to this one. So here is a duck called a pintail. At this time of the year, the males have these bright brown heads, and you can see why they're called the pintails, because the males develop these elongated tail feathers. And being dabbling ducks, they're just going to, put their rears in the air while they try to grab aquatic vegetation. And these long tail feathers uh, they will stick up. They migrate early. I've seen them like in February when there's still snow and ice on the ground. So these are from February from a couple of years ago. And they often appear in these big groups. And I think in this one where it was the 10 species that were at the sanctuary recently, the pintail is in here somewhere. Now, a lot of birds develop these long tail feathers in males. And if you were to ask, why is that? Once again, it's a kind of not only to show what species one belongs to, but also that's a bit of a burden. Flying with that, it's a little less navigable. It takes more energy to make. Females can check out whether it's symmetrical or not. So it's kind of like asking the male body, hey, jump over this bar. And now females can judge and kind of say, like, ooh, how long are the tail feathers? How well did they develop as a sign of male health? Right. So here's a pintail that was in Goshen a week ago. And if you ask what that is, that's the female. All right, so notice the females don't have those the same coloration or the long tails. And then you would have to look for something like, ooh, that neck looks longer than you would see in a mallard. So I'm going to maybe check that out. So those are all the dabbling ducks. And then you also have a chance to see something like this. So here are ducks. And notice the snow and the ice. So they migrate, but we've been seeing them all over the place, and it just became spring. We've been seeing them for 2 weeks, and so the end of winter is when quote spring migration begins. And you can say, ah, look at that, the black heads, the white stripes, the orange eyes, that's so distinctive. Once again, that is the males during breeding season. The females are a little less noticeable. So here, that's the female of the ring-necked duck.
Oh, yes. Mm.
Now, they are called ring-necked ducks for a horrible reason. In the old days, more people were hunting whatever they were going to eat for dinner. And so you got to see a lot of these animals close up. So if you look here, that is not black. That's actually a brownish black, kind of like an auburn. And so if you look really carefully at some of this, can you see that? There's a reddish stripe there. There's a reddish stripe there, reddish stripe there. So if this was brought home for your dinner, right, you might notice, oh, I can see a ring on the neck of this duck. Let's call it a ring-necked duck. But now we bird watchers, we're looking at these diving ducks, which like the middle of the lake. You're not going to see that unless the light is perfect and you've got, a really good view with a scope or whatever. So, the ring on the bill is obviously the ring on the neck is less so. They like hanging out in groups, so you're likely to see groups of them together. And as you'll see here, they start diving underwater. So there you go. There they go diving. And the minute you see that, you're like, okay, there's all of these dabbling ducks, but I'm clearly in the other category now. These are the diving ducks. They go to the north of Canada in order to breed. And so this is the time of year to see them. Here you can see the males showing off by uh, tilting their head back. You can see the nice rufous stripe there. So they are diving ducks. As are these guys, and these guys I've seen a lot. They were at the Bashik Hill last night. They are in Goshen. These are called buffleheads. Here you can see the male and the female. So the male has a greenish black head and a big white spot, whereas the female's white spot is more on her cheek. The male has a bright white chest, which contrasts with his dark back. The female, a little less so. But as you'll see, this one will go underwater in a second, and you can say, aha, once again, a diving duck. That's one of the other the categories here. And once again, green and blue, they're tricky because it depends on how the light catches them. So look at this thing. What color is that? Well, I see green. I see purple there. I see black there. And that's just there's pigments like the ones a pigment molecule, like you have a red t-shirt, but green and blue are structural pigments. So it really affects how light is interacting with the structure of the feathers. And so a green-winged teal sometimes look bluish, and these buffleheads can look green, they can look purple, they can look black, depending on that. But here you can see the male and the female. And once again, this is just a couple of days ago at the Bashik Hill. And this is the time to go. So this is a great time to go out birding looking for ducks. Buffleheads are little ducks, almost as small as the green-winged teal. So their size can be useful in distinguishing between them. I don't often see golden eyes. They do kind of look a lot like the buffleheads. One of the reasons is a lot of these diving ducks are sometimes called sea ducks because if you live closer, like to the Hudson River, if you live near the Great Lakes, if you live near the Jersey Shore, now you might see more ducks on the ocean in deeper bays, etc., than the ones you would see here. So this is what's called a golden eye, and that you can see the yellow color of the eye. It does have green and white on the head like a bufflehead would, but it is a little different than the bufflehead. Here's another diving duck called a ruddy duck. Now, they can look different at different times of the year, but notice how they hold their tail feathers, often kind of at an angle. So that's one of the things that you could, notice as one is swimming along. That would help you identify that. So here, right, they don't have to hold their tails at an angle, but very often they do. So if you notice that, you're like, aha, that's a defining feature. Which, if there's a whole bunch of ducks in an area, you want defining you would like defining features. There are some ducks which you can see in Orange County, but you don't usually see it. So I've seen this one at the Bashik Hill. This is called a canvasback. Notice the red head, but you would be far more likely to see this on the Hudson or closer to the ocean. All right, so there are some things which are occasionally seen in Orange County, like this canvasback. There's a smaller duck with a red head called literally the redhead. But once again, they are only occasional. So there's a red head duck there that I saw at the Liberty Loop a couple of years ago. Sorry, the picture isn't very good. They are unusual. These next two ducks are unusual because when we think of ducks, we often think of a duck bill. It's got a wide bill that they can scoop up aquatic vegetation with. But these next two have narrow bills. Narrow bills often imply you're hunting something that swims, like small fish or water bugs. Like, so there are crocodiles that have really narrow bills, and that's so that they can close it very tightly on a wriggly fish. These are the same way. These are mergansers. There are two types of merganser in our area. These are the common mergansers. The green heads and the white chest, those are males during breeding season, all right? While the females and males outside of breeding season will look like this. So this time of year, males look like this, females look like this. The rest of the year, almost all of them will look like this. Some subtle differences like in how fluffy the feathers are. But once again, even though fall bird watching is fun, spring is even more fun because just the birds are so much more colorful. So if you were go to, once again, Goshen or the Bashik Hill or many other places, you'll see these common mergansers, and especially on a sunny day, quite distinctive in their coloration. So here you see a bunch of females here. Here you see some males flying. Notice how narrow the bills are. I think I have another picture coming up somewhere. Oh, I thought I did. Okay, that just shows them in flight and shows how narrow their bills are compared to most ducks. So right now, if you were to go to like a lake or a wetland, you could see them now. Like I just saw them pulling into Auk this morning. There were six of them on a small pond here, but I don't expect them to last. This is just a migration stopover. But if you do see them, go to different habitats in Orange County. Orange County is like really diverse. I mean, we've got mountains, we've got swamps, we've got two rivers, the Delaware and the Hudson. We've got a lot of diverse habitats. So if you kayak the Delaware River, which I love to do, all right. And so, there's places which are calm if you're not as, as comfortable kayaking, etc. You can see this where these common mergansers breed in our area. So here's a female, and then here's a whole bunch of young. Once again, they can also do a bit of nest dumping where females can lay their eggs in the nest of others. So you can see like they're famous. You can have huge numbers of ducklings following a female here. In fact, something that's common in these guys always often like is if your kayak spooks them and they're trying to get away, a lot of times one or two of the young will jump on the back of the mother as they're all kind of swimming away. If you ask why don't they fly away, here's an interesting thing about ducks. Unlike most birds, which when they molt feathers, they'll molt them a little at a time. Like here, let me lose this flight feather over here, and gradually replace them. Ducks do it all at once. So there comes a point in late spring, ducks can't fly. They've shed all their feathers. And so you see them taking care of the young are all swimming. The adults can't fly away. And by adults, I'm sorry, I mean the females. The males are long gone. The females can't fly away because their feathers, here they are molting and they're just not long enough. Um, yet. So that's why they want to have camouflage, which lets them blend in with surrounding vegetation. But in case they'll be on the Delaware River all summer long. So you won't probably see them at lakes near you. But Orange County has lots of habitats, and if you were to visit different habitats, you'll see different ducks. So that's kind of fun. So those are common mergansers. And a little bit smaller are these guys called hooded mergansers. Often also have very narrow bills, are also diving ducks, all right? And notice not only that it has a spot, but notice that the spot can change. So if you look at a hooded merganser, you notice on the males, there's a big white spot on a black head, but also notice its shape varies a little bit because these crests, they can go up and they can go down. And so then the shape of the crest and the white spot on it can vary with whether the males are showing off for females, but also there can be like just emotions being expressed. Like with blue jays, blue jays have a crest. How high is the crest? That depends. Is it relaxed? Is it scared? Is it like anxious? And so there are muscles under the skin of these feathers which can raise these crests a little bit, and you can get an idea how the bird is feeling. The bird is kind of communicating with those around it. So these you can see in our area today, but in the not too distant future, you won't because all of them will be up north breeding. Once again, spring is a great time to go out looking for the diverse waterfowl. So here you can see the hooded mergansers. Now, just like that canvasback was an unusual duck to see. Oh, no, come on. I'm sorry, I keep making more movies with the latest videos. Here's one that we saw at the Liberty Loop, I think 2 years ago. And if you notice, it looks like a merganser. It's got the whole narrow bill. It's got the tuft of feathers, so that's a merganser. But if you look at the chest, it's colored. Like it's red here. And then you realize, oh, wait, there's a merganser called a red-breasted merganser that isn't white on the chest. Like that's the name, red breast. So that's one of the things you look for. And you're thinking, wow, that's usually an ocean bird, right? That's not something that we really see often. So all of the rest of this is from Lake Erie. Lake Erie is a place where you might expect to see a lot of these, as you do here. And so notice this is a good place for a diving duck, because if you're going to feed on stuff, if you're on a Great Lake, you can't upend yourself and reach anything of interest. You can't get the vegetation on the bottom. And if you're a merganser with a narrow bill chasing fish, you're not going to catch any fish just by upending yourself. You have to swim underwater. And so you'd be more likely to see these on places like deeper water, here like the ocean on bays, or here you are in Lake Erie. So once again, if New York State touches a couple of Great Lakes. So by all means, if you travel around New York State, you might see very different birds in one part of New York State than what you see in Orange County. We have such a diversity of habitats here. But also, if you look close, once again, I almost missed this bird because I thought, oh, it's a common merganser. And then I said, no, wait, look at the chest. That's a different color. That was a different species. Now I'm going to start to wind up. I think this is the last new duck in Orange County that I know of, and then it's just uh so what I'm going to say, don't do this. All right, so it wasn't stupid, but it wasn't smart when I did it. So I don't know if you remember, the beginning of January was cold, the end of January was cold, the middle of January warmed up. So me being me, I said, ah, I'm going to go kayaking a little. Like, that'd be stupid. I'm going to stay, close enough to shore. I'm not going to go crazy, not do a 10-mile jaunt like I do in summer, but I'm going to go out anyway. So, A, you could argue not the smartest thing, and I wouldn't argue with you. So this is what it looked like, right?
Hi.
Or actually, that was right before, actually. And then the middle of January, notice it all melted. So that was the beginning of January. Here's the middle of January. So I'm like, I can get out on this. So I go out one day and I didn't go long. But I noticed something. I noticed this thing that I had never seen before. This is an immature long-tailed duck. So when mature, it'll have a slightly different coloration, and it'll be another one that has a long tail. It's a diving duck, so it goes underwater as well. My point is that I made earlier, it took me years to learn that you should just go out in nature, any season, any time, and you'll see different things, but there are things that you only see in winter. So this bird I've never seen before, and I don't expect to see it anywhere near here in summer months. But because it was winter, and where its breeding grounds were, um, there was this unusual duck that I got to see. And so, any time of year is good to get out, but especially in spring. This is when the colors are the most vibrant. This is when all of the migrating ducks are coming through. Most of the ducks that you just saw are not going to be here come the end of May. They will be in northern New York. They will be in Canada where they breed. And then we will be stuck with just a couple, like the mallards and the wood ducks, or if you went to the Delaware, the common merganser. So this is the time to get out if you want to see some of the new ones. And I often say, like, look at every duck. So I made this point before, and at home you actually already saw this. So what I like to do is, if a bunch of ducks take off, I say, you know what, I'm going to take pictures of them, because every now and then you say, wait, I thought that was all just a bunch of mallards, but it turns out, oh, look, there's some green-winged teals in there, or there was a blue-winged teal flying. I think that was the point in the video um, there. So I hate to, like, diss other parts of the world because I love to travel. I've been around. But very often when I travel, like, I get to a point where I like, wow, can't wait to get home and go bird watching because I'm seeing great stuff where I am, but it's not as diverse and not as, great as what I would see if I had just stayed home. We really do live in a wonderful area, just the incredible number of habitats. I mean, just Bear Mountain State Park, almost gets as many visitors as Yosemite does in some years. And so just we have just such great natural resources. New York State, the same could be said. And so I hope you get to go out in this beautiful weather. I hope you get to see um, wonderful birds. And we'll be going through a couple more topics just to read the remainder of the topics here. We're going to be talking about bird love and just kind of about courtship and, feathers and how they raise their young next week. Then flower sex. We'll talk about flowers. And when we look at flowers, like, why is this one red? Why does this one have this pattern, et cetera? What's going on there? And then invasive species, songbird migration, human evolution, biodiversity, and the modern extinction. And then the last one on May 11th is a town hall. So, my preference is I'll just sit down and then you can come up with your stories and you can talk about the birds in your backyard or the birds you saw. And, that would be great to hear from you. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Let me just check the chat. There was one new. I'm trying to get to you. Oh, okay. Thank you, Adrian. So thanks for coming, and thanks for being interested. I mean, we worry about these guys. Some of them they're declining. All birds are declining. North America's lost a quarter of its birds in the past couple decades. But some are declining faster, like black ducks. Their numbers are declining faster. And the only way we preserve them is if people care. So your attention here, your interest, you care. You're one of the things that, we're likely to preserve their habitat and trying to preserve them. So thank you for coming. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
Questions, feel free to stay. Otherwise, have a wonderful week. If this is like your first time here, or your second time here, if you don't already have a calendar either of Orange County Audubon Society or the Bashakil, feel free to take a calendar with pictures of local wildlife. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks.
Do you favor a particular time of day for general sighting?